Is it recording?
Yep, you're good to go.
Cool. All right. Hello, my name is Nicole Slattery. I am your instructor today for the real secrets of money. And in particular, we are focusing on financial psychology today. So we are going to be getting into the depths of understanding our belief systems around money, our relationship around money, and how to really evolve and grow in our relationship with money to ensure we have an abundant, really healthy relationship. So, before I get started today, I have a quick disclaimer. This is a educational program and it is put on by First Financial Security. So this is really helping us with a depth of information around financial psychology. However, it is not meant to be specific tax, legal, or accounting advice. That's where you want to go to your experts. And we are here as an expert to really provide that information. And then we can work in conjunction with these other experts that you might want to lean into as you build your wealth plan. So just a quick disclaimer there before we get started. So today, in financial psychology, we're going to be covering a couple different things. First of all, we really want to understand how our psychology around money develops. Where did it come from? How did it start? Why does it stick with us so long? Then we're going to go into discovering our core beliefs around money. I have some key questions that I'm going to ask you to reflect on today to really understand what are those beliefs that are driving your relationship with money, and more importantly, driving your decision making on a daily basis. Then we're going to delve into what does financial trauma look like and how do we step forward and actually heal our financial trauma. So you may not even think that trauma has impacted you in any way, but as we delve into your belief systems and reflect on some of these questions, you may see yourself in some of these different trauma responses around money. So, we're going to be covering all of those things today and more. And I welcome you to really use this as an exercise in reflection, an exercise in understanding what that relationship is and how to heal it so you can live an even more abundant life and grow your wealth. So, what is financial psychology? Financial psychology is the study of our beliefs around money and how this creates specific behaviors. So, we have pulled upon a variety of research, tools, books, all different things to really come together and give you the highlights of financial psychology. But this is a study that has been going on as long as humans have been exchanging value with money because there's such a depth here of decision making and how that creates our life that we really owe it to ourselves to understand our own psychology to live our best life. And why is this important? This is important because studies have shown that 1 in 4 Americans and 1 in 3 millennials actually have post-traumatic stress syndrome symptoms around money. So this can come from a variety of sources. This could come from when you were young and a parent lost a job. This could come from your own redundancy or losing a job or making a poor financial decision and the emotions that came up around that. So this is something that touches everyone, but it's especially touching that cohort of millennials because that cohort has had a lot of different job changes and have been through a lot of things when it comes to money and their relationship with it. So why is that important? Why is it important to address this particular issue? Because these beliefs and this trauma that we have around money, this actually influences our daily decision making. So, this influences how open we are to maybe changing a job or starting a new investment or thinking about starting a business. Your money beliefs and your money story has everything to do with how you live your entire life. So, as we explore the beliefs today, I want you to really see how this comes together to influence all of the decisions that you're making in your life around money and things like work and investments. So, another thing to really be aware of here is that financial trauma and negative beliefs can have a debilitating and a destructive impact on how we view the world, how we show up in financial decision making, and it can inhibit us from making really powerful moves within our life to change our relationship with money and abundance. So, as I speak through this, and as you might start to have some questions here about what are my money beliefs, we're going to start a poll. And in this poll, I want you to think about this question deeply. When you think about money, what emotion comes up for you the most? You have a couple options here. So that emotion might look like stress, it might look like hope, guilt, curiosity, or confidence. So reflect on this question and take a moment to think about what emotion really resonates with you as you think about money. I'll give you a moment. All right. So, thank you for your responses. The number one emotion that is coming up for folks is curiosity. So, let's go back here. So, curiosity is fascinating in that it really offers us a chance to delve in and to understand how this might be impacting us, but how we might get better. So I am going to go back to our presentation here and close out those results. All right. Okay. So beautiful. We had curiosity. And with curiosity, there's an openness. There is a ability to take in new information and recognize at any moment we can change our relationship with money. So thank you for all of those who were able to answer the question. I appreciate it. All right. So now we're going to transition into how does the psychology around money develop in our lives? Where does it start? Where does it come from? And why does it stick with us so long? So, as with a lot of things, the psychology of money starts with our beliefs. And it starts with the beliefs of our parents and our upbringing. So if you heard things like money doesn't grow on trees, money is very difficult, you have to work really, really hard, and it's challenging to get, things of those nature, which are perhaps a little bit more negative or perhaps a little bit more positive. Excuse me. Any beliefs that your parents have shared, either to the positive or the negative, those have been conditioned. Those are in your psyche from a very young age. And our own parents' beliefs really form the foundation of how we think and feel about money. So it's important for us as we're reflecting today on a couple different questions about our money story to understand if that belief is really your belief or if it's coming from your parents, because that stuff runs really, really deep and it really forms our pre-programming of how we relate to money. And it didn't necessarily start with your parents. This is a very generational impact. So when we think about our relationship with money, it starts at the grandparent level. It starts with how were your parents raised and what were they taught about money? Some of the things that come up for my clients are money's the root of evil and rich people are greedy. And that it it goes back many, many generations, and it impacts how we feel in a comfort level of having money or giving money away or spending it. These ways of relating to money are so far back in our lineage that we owe it to ourselves to reflect on this money story and where it came from, because it didn't start with us. It started many generations ago. So something important to think about as you reflect on your money story and you think about your parents' relationship with it, in addition to grandparents and even beyond if you knew your great grandparents. So it's definitely generational, multi-generational. In addition to that, our money story is societal. So the people we hang out with, the behaviors they have around money, and these are our coworkers, friends, neighbors, all that good stuff. And then in addition to that, especially in the world of social media and getting a lot of our news and information from different social media sites, that is influencing how we think about money. Do we have that confidence in ourselves, in our money, to be swayed by what the media or what friends or coworkers are sharing? That's a powerful thing to reflect on too, because you're not only influenced by that multi-generation, you're influenced by all the people you're hanging out with on a daily basis, as well as the media. And then one of the final ways of how our money story develops is in a systematic way. So, this is really reflecting on what was your socioeconomic status when you were growing up? How did that impact your ability to have a strong relationship with money? It may also be impacted by your race, ethnicity, gender. What I have found as well in working with clients is that our work environment and how we earn money has a big influence on our relationship with money. So if you have a more positive work environment or positive relationship with money and work, those tend to correlate really closely. If your relationship around work and how you earn money is more negative, that's going to correlate with the work and the money story. So, thinking about all of these different factors, I would like you to take a moment and identify your core beliefs around money. So we've talked about the influence that our parents, that generations before us have, our friends, all of the different influences here. I want you to take a moment and ask yourself, what's coming up for you? What do you feel about money that's coming from your parents, your friends, the social media that you're exposed to? What comes up? And then moving on from there, what would you like to change? Where do you see an opportunity for change? And then what maybe works really well for you and what do you want to double down on? One of the things that works really well for me, and it works well for the folks on the phone too, calling out curiosity, is I'm a very curious person. So when it comes to money, I love to read different books about it. I love to delve into researching about behavior around money, about different investment tools, and so forth. So I follow that curiosity and I follow that positive emotion to increase my wealth, my abundance, and my positive relationship around money. So, as you think about these different questions, this is just a nice time to really reflect and think about what's coming up for you. What do you want to change? And what do you maybe want to double down and refocus on more if it is working for you? So, take a moment there and welcome, Andrea.
Thank you.
Mm. All right. So, we had some time to reflect and to think about what is our relationship with money, what are the beliefs that are coming up, and what do we want to change. Now, you may have heard about this concept of a scarcity versus abundance mindset. And this is really a continuum. And I want you to think about where do you fall on this continuum when it comes to your own financial psychology. So we start first with the scarcity mindset. So, the scarcity mindset is a belief that wealth is very limited. And I like to think about this as having an apple pie in front of you, and there's only so many slices. You can't make more. It is a very limited distribution of how you connect and use resources. When I work with people who have scarcity, there's this hyper focus on lack. There's never going to be enough. I need to be very, very careful with every decision I make around money because it is very finite and I don't necessarily have the opportunity to make it bigger. And this stems from a lot of fear. This stems from most likely some negative beliefs that we grew up with around money. And if you find yourself with more of the scarcity mindset, just take a note of that. We're going to talk about how you might be able to heal that with some of our healing steps after we talk through financial trauma. All right. Then we have the abundance mindset. And with the abundance mindset, this is when we believe that the pie is always getting bigger. There's more than enough. We're creative. We can create more money. We can create more opportunity at any time. Most of my clients who have an abundance mindset, they have gratitude for everything, they have appreciation, and they're really reflecting on where things are going well with their money and not necessarily any poor decisions that they've made with money. So, with the abundance, this is definitely more of the positive relationship with money. The only watch out here is to think about your future self too, and to think about what that future self might want and might need outside of the present focus on abundance. So there's really no right or wrong when it comes to scarcity versus the abundant mindset. It's just really important to be very clear about where you are in that continuum and where it might help you to kind of move towards abundance or even move towards scarcity, thinking about your total life cycle with money and when you might be able to actually save some for the future or save some for big purchases that come up that may not necessarily be able to be actualized in the moment as abundance, but are able to be realized in the future. So, something to think about there from a mindset standpoint and really reflect on. All right, now we are going to go into a couple more questions. And these questions really allow us to understand what our relationship is with money. So, we've talked about how financial psychology is built and where it comes from. But now let's take a moment to actually reflect on what our relationship is with money. And one of the most powerful questions that I was asked about money and really helped me understand what my relationship is that if you went out to coffee or lunch with money, how would you feel? What questions would you ask money? Even thinking about what gender is money, what emotions would come up for you if you were to have coffee or lunch with money. This really allows you to understand, when you take a moment with it, what your relationship is and where you may have some opportunities to grow in an even more positive way. So take a moment and think about that. Reflect. You can go back to these questions, but this one is really important to start understanding your beliefs around money. The second question is, how do you feel when you receive unexpected money? What do you do with the unexpected money? Do you want to use it right away? Do you want to save it? How do you feel about receiving those unexpected funds? Take a moment and reflect on that. We're going to keep going here. There's a couple questions here. And these are just really good from a standpoint of understanding what lies beneath your relationship with money. All right. When you have an unexpected expense, how does that make you feel? Does it rile up a lot of intense emotions? Is it neutral? Is it thankful because you have the money to be able to rise to pay for that unexpected bill? How do you feel? And our fourth question here is, what emotions come up for you when a big financial decision is required? I had an example of this when I got a letter from the water company telling us that we needed to tear down our septic tank and connect to the city water. Whew, that was a big one. Unexpected, required a financial decision to be made, and it brought up a lot of emotions in me. There was fear, there was, stalling on decision making, there was different things, and it was just such a moment for me to be like, wow, my relationship with money is still evolving, is still more in the fear response. It's still in a space of non-neutrality, really negativity. So when you have a big financial decision to make, buying a car, buying a new house, college education for your children, what emotions come up for you around that? Think about it. And then my last question here is, how do you feel when you buy something you want, but you didn't necessarily need? So, how do you feel when you purchased that big vacation or you purchased that luxury vehicle that you could have gotten the standard, but you went above? How does that make you feel? Do you feel excited? Do you feel scared? Do you feel ambivalent? Feel into that to really think about, what is your relationship with money? Now we are going to have another poll question. So let's pull up that poll, and I want everybody to reflect on this question. Have you ever made a financial decision purely based on fear? This is yes, no, or not sure. We're really trying to reflect on here, where are our financial decisions coming from? I'll give you guys just a moment. All right. We actually got a not sure response here. So it is really challenging to know where our financial decisions are even coming from. It's honestly an invitation for us to look back and to think about what are those major decisions we've had and how did we feel? Do we feel like we made the right decision? Do we feel like we made a poor one just because we were in a state of fear? It's always important to pause and really take time to reflect when you do have those big financial decisions. And the most positive place you can make that decision from is neutrality. Because money is a tool, it is a neutral tool, and we don't have to let fear lead our decision making when we have neutrality around money. And if we have even more positivity around money, we can be really excited and we can reflect back and look on that money decision and feel super confident about it if we have a positive relationship with money. So thank you for answering the poll question. And I hear you with not sure. Sometimes it's hard to connect back to where did that decision come from and how do I make financial decisions? So I encourage you when you have another financial decision coming up, just think about where is my emotion? Where do I feel around this financial decision and how is it driving my yes or no to making this purchase? Okay. We are going to go to a really, really powerful topic here, which is what is financial trauma? I talked about how 1 in 3 millennials have some financial trauma. And I want to go into how that shows up and what do we do about it. Okay. So, financial trauma is really like having a financial scar within our body. It's this dysfunctional reaction to a chronic financial stressful environment within your body. So this can actually interfere with our ability to do just normal work and life functions. And that sounds really powerful, but I want you to think about even when have you stopped yourself from potentially reaching out to an expert to get that roof replaced, to meet with a lawyer and have an estate plan, to meet with an accountant, and so forth? When we think about the basics of life and running our home and running our family, when have we paused and not gotten the help we needed because we didn't feel even like if we had the money, we didn't feel like we could purchase that for ourselves. We could go forward and actually lean on some of that expertise. So when you have financial trauma, it can show up in a variety of ways I'm going to go through, but when it is actually interfering with your day-to-day activities, it can show up in a lot of different ways. It can show up in not purchasing, over purchasing, and so forth, but it gets in the way of you living your best life and you really enjoying the resources that you have created. It also shows up in our basic thought patterns. So when we have a negative, financially scarred relationship with money and really a trauma response, we will ruminate over failures we made about financial decisions. So did I purchase the right car? Did I purchase the right home? And we'll continue to refocus and go over and over again on our financial decisions, kind of over analyzing and staying in that analysis paralysis because we have that trauma inside of us. We don't have neutrality when it comes to money, and we don't feel confident in our decision because of that trauma. So if any of that feels like it resonates with maybe how you feel about money, you might be experiencing some scarring and some financial trauma around money. I'm going to go into a little bit more specifics here. So, financial trauma can show up in a couple different ways. And that looks like financial avoidance, that looks like overspending, underspending, or lack of financial boundaries. So, as you reflect here and you think about your relationship with money, and even if it goes as high as having trauma, does this show up in any of these circumstances for you? So, the first here is financial avoidance. So, when you think about your relationship and your daily interaction with money, are you open to having conversations about finances? Are you and your significant other sitting down to look at a spending plan, to look at insurance coverages, to look at long-term investments that you might want to make into college education or an investment plan, what have you? Are you open to conversations around finances there? Are you looking at your credit card statements? Are you ensuring that there's always enough, if not more? And are you kind of doing a double look at what you have spent money on and if that met, your values or if it didn't and how you want to make that change? It also looks like checking your bank balances and your statements to ensure that you always know where you stand with your money. Trauma can look like avoiding all of this and just kind of sticking your head in the sand and pretending like it's all going to be fine. I don't need to look at the details. We're a-okay. That's actually a trauma response. If you have a good relationship with money, you're willing to sit down with it and have a conversation and look at the details and get into it and understand where it's going and what it's creating for you. So if you have financial avoidance, you may want to just reflect back and see how you can change that to be more positive and to move on from that financial trauma. Financial trauma can also look like overspending. So, trauma in early life could look like not having enough money or having a lot of fear around not even having the basics of life. And then when you do actually have more money and more resources in adulthood, there's this compulsion to spend because there's the trauma of feeling like it's going to go away anyway. And I don't know what else to do with it. And I just want to use it to its fullest right now. This can look like spending a lot on eating out, vacations that you can't necessarily pay for, or other major purchases. This is a trauma response in that you may have lower confidence with the ability to hold the money and to intend to grow it or do what is truly in service to your value systems and how you want to use your resources. So if you are overspending and overcommitting yourself, think about where this stemmed from and how you can really start to break that cycle to be very intentional about your resources and to build that positive relationship with money. All right. Then we kind of have the flip side here. With trauma, it can show up like underspending. So, this is when somebody is extremely reluctant to spend money on anything. So, this is kind of getting back to the example I was talking about before, where you need an expert at home to take care of something that you might be able to on your own, but really you might not have the time available to. And you're not actually making that phone call to have the expert come to receive the help you need, even when you have money available. So, this is really connected to that scarcity mindset. Even when you do have the resources, you're not able to fully actualize how much that could really better your life because you have the trauma around there's never enough, I'm not safe, and I have to keep just saving instead of actually using that money to heal and help and support you right now. So, trauma can look like underspending, especially when these are things that are necessary for you to have your best home and family life. And then finally, one of the more interesting things around financial trauma that I've seen in working with people is just an inability to set boundaries around finances. So this can look like, especially for sole proprietors or self-employed folks, undercharging for your services, or it can look like for our folks who are working for others, under earning and not negotiating the proper at market competitive salary for yourself. And this can look like not having clear payment terms on your contract. So this really comes to a different traumatic response around your own confidence with money, your own self-worth around money. So if you find yourself not having these boundaries and speaking up for yourself to have a competitive salary, to have positive contract terms for your self-employment, or even if you're I've seen this before too. You're giving money to others within your family without having the proper boundaries, and you're kind of overgiving when you don't necessarily have the funds to be able to. So that's another example of lack of financial boundaries. So we're going to do a quick poll here. And for financial trauma, I really want you guys to think about your current financial situation. And do you believe that it is a result of your upbringing or not? So we have strongly agree, agree, neutral, and disagree here for how you feel about your financial situation and if it's a result of your upbringing. I'll give you just a moment to pop in and provide your response to the poll. All right. So we're pretty neutral about it. Overall, we have a couple of responses here coming in. Okay, perfect. It's a neutral thing. So honestly, that's a good place to be. It means that you've reflected on where you came from and how your parents and your upbringing have had some impact, but you've kind of been able to remove yourself from those previous money beliefs and create your own. So I encourage you to really continue to develop this neutrality around you get to create your money beliefs. You get to create your financial story and how you have a relationship with money. And the more intentional you are about it, and the more you create the positivity, the more you're going to see, honestly, your health and your wealth grow. Because the more we're aware of something, the more we can do about it. Perfect. All right. So we just went through here financial trauma and reflecting on it, where it comes from, what we really see within ourselves or maybe don't see. Now I want to talk about, so how do we change negative beliefs around money? We know we might have them. We know we might be at the effect of them, but how do we change? So the big thing here is change usually comes when the discomfort of staying where we are is higher than the comfort of staying where we are. So I have seen this a lot in people staying in jobs and it's comfortable enough, or people staying in investments and it's comfortable enough. But when it becomes really uncomfortable, when that investment is going up and down and all around, and you can't count on it for a continuous income, or when that job is just not fulfilling you and providing the resources you need for your life, that's when we start to change. That being said, we can do a lot of things before we get into the arena of discomfort. So I want us to think about all of the different things that we have power to change before we get in discomfort, because the natural human tendency is to wait. But when we take a moment and we actually reflect on how to change and how to become more positive, we get ahead of it. So, how to rechange? Couple things here. So, first of all, if you are not having regular conversations with your partner, or even if you're single and you don't take time to kind of look at all your bank statements and your credit cards and all that good stuff, take time to have that conversation with your spouse, to look at where you stand financially, and even start to talk to your friends and family about it. It's really normal to talk about money and what we're doing with it. And the more we can have positive conversations and openness about it, the better relationship we can have with money. Then this is an interesting one, labeling your feelings. So when you have a big financial decision coming up, label how does that make you feel? That allows us to kind of take ourselves out of it, understand that this is emotional, that this is not necessarily having the neutrality and objectivity we might want in our financial decision, because there's a strong emotion connected to it. So if we label it, we start to detach the emotion from the actual decision. One of my favorite things here is to heal and to help yourself around money, especially if it's a big decision. It's always great to just walk away from the decision for a while. Take those deep breaths, calm your nervous system, ensure you're not making that decision from a place of fear, from a place of anxiety or rushing, but rather you've taken the time to take some deep breaths and to really bring objectivity and positivity to that financial decision. So, this is imperative too, even for, I know a lot of us have been told this before, but even if you have those small purchases, putting them in the shopping cart, quote unquote, in Amazon, and waiting for that purchase to be made. So, you give yourself a little bit of space between feeling an emotion and making a purchase. And then that creates more confidence around your ability to manage your resources and understand the feelings that are driving your purchase decisions. And another thing here, separating yourself from any toxic narratives around a negative money story. So, toxic narratives, excuse me, toxic narratives can look like the whole money doesn't grow on trees, or, investing is like gambling, any of those toxic things where it doesn't resonate and feel empowering to you. So, reflect on it, separate yourself, and know that's not your money story, that's somebody else's. Challenging any negative beliefs you have around money is super powerful. We always have the opportunity to be able to have a more positive, healthy, and better relationship with money, but we have to challenge those beliefs. And then forgiving yourself. This is a big one. When it comes to our relationship with money, forgiving ourselves for a decision we made years ago. This could be about taking out loans that maybe you in hindsight wouldn't have taken, or making a purchase decision that you wouldn't make now. Forgiving yourself and having compassion for the person you were at that moment, and that you only had so much information to be able to make that decision. So simply forgiving yourself and knowing you can work from a much more positive space. And then asking for help. Myself, Lisa, all of us at Unique Growth, we are here to help you build a secure financial plan to ensure that you start to really develop that beautiful relationship with money and feel positive about how it's growing and how it's enabling you to have your best life. And finally, take action. What I see a lot when I work with people who have negative money stories is they stall a lot on making powerful decisions about how they're going to move forward with their money. So, we all know there's a lot of different things that we can allocate our resources to, but when we get stuck in the analysis paralysis, we don't actually move forward and enable our money to start making money for us or to serve us in the best way possible. So take action. Coming out of this, that is one of my strongest calls to action is to be decisive, confident, and move forward. All right. Oh, I actually wanted to do another poll here before I wrap us up. I wanted to ask if you would like a follow-up worksheet or reflection tool for this presentation. I went over a lot of different things today. I went over how our money beliefs develop, where they're coming from, where they may have come from, what financial trauma looks like, what do we do about financial trauma, that whole scarcity to abundance continuum, where do we find ourselves on that? We went through a lot. So I see we have yeses coming in here. Perfect. So I will follow up with a worksheet and a reflection tool for this session because I've gone over a lot and I want you to take the proper time to really reflect on how to have a more positive relationship and how to move forward in a confident way. So thank you for that response. All right. So I wanted to conclude here and say a couple things that are really powerful and I want to stick at the end of this presentation. First of all, you are worthy of an abundant life. And any narratives or anything around your money story that's inhibiting you from having the most abundant life, we need to take a double look at. And we need to understand how to move you in a more positive direction because you are worthy of that abundant life. Also, your worth has nothing to do with how much you have. We often hear a lot about, and this is on social media and this is everywhere, a lot about, what the average net worth is and what the averages are at each age of how much we should have. But it doesn't matter. What matters is your positive relationship with yourself because money can fix a lot of problems, but it cannot fix everything. And if you have a negative relationship with money, you're going to continue to run into obstacles and challenges with that trauma. So, if we understand our inherent worth and we know we're worthy of an abundant life, then it's up to us to change our mindset, to develop a positive financial psychology, to actually live our best life, and to be empowered with money rather than to be the victim of money. So I wanted to end on that because it's just such a powerful thing to remember as we're evaluating our relationship with money and our own financial trauma. And lastly, here, if you would like to have a complimentary discovery session where we explore your relationship with money, where you stand financially, where you want to go, and you would like help with that, you can book a complimentary session where we go over all of that and provide coaching. So you can connect here. And if you would like to learn more about any of the topics I explored here on financial psychology, included in the presentation are all of the additional resources that we have used to develop this and that we use to continually help and coach our clients. So those will be available as well. Now, I wanted to open the floor. If we have any questions, if we have any comments, please just put them in the chat And I am happy to answer any of those questions or to review any material that needs a second look. I am open. I'll give it a moment. All right, I'm not seeing any questions, so I am going to end our conversation today and thank you for joining me in the Real Secrets of Money Financial Psychology session. I hope that you take this, you reflect on it, and you really understand how your financial psychology is showing up for you and how you can pivot to make it even more positive. Thank you so much. And if you'd like to connect, you can connect here, or as always, you can go onto the Unique Growth website and connect with us there. And